So today I'm going to teach you how to prepare surface pattern design using Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator. I have version 2020, Illustrator 2020. So as I had mentioned earlier, we shall place our design, which is a scanned image. Today we're going to do a surface pattern design based on an ethnic wooden spoon. The other illustration that I had actually done was an illustration of some three, let me call them teardrops. And because I really like this version, what will happen is I will, clip mask that. So we have two elements here that we're going to use. So to start, we shall trace this image, and normally I just hit image trace, and what happens is it automatically just traces it and then hit expand. As you can see, it's become a vector. And all you do is you delete the white background. Same thing here. Click the image, hit image trace. It should trace that image as well. And again, expand. And then you have everything traced up, but we just need that bit. So as you can see, I have slight sort of errors on my artwork. So the idea here is to clean up what you want cleaned. If you want, to work with perhaps one teardrop and then duplicate it, then that would be great. For now, we shall just choose one that seems workable. So in this instance, I think my best one is perhaps this one in group. This one. That's my choice, this one. And what I'll do is I'll just make a quick edit here and make that black. So I'll choose the one on the left, on the right on my screen. And I think it's actually, so I think I would like to get rid of that. So I simply delete it and remain. So instead of deleting, what I'd do is perhaps I'd make them a shade lighter or a shade different. And then just pick the one I like, which is that one, copy paste and rotate it so that I have something similar, right? So once I'm happy with what I have, I then simply delete what I don't need, right? So these are the three that I will be using for my background. Yeah. And I will then group them and put them aside as done, right? So the next thing is the spoon. Again, I will check the same thing. I will check for errors. Perhaps I want to clean out certain lines like here. Perhaps I want to delete some of these anchor points. I'll use my negative pen tool to perhaps remove some of these anchor points, as you've seen. And any other edits I'd like to do. Just checking to see whether I have something that looks nice and even. Another way of doing this is to actually redraw the whole thing. So it could be that you'd like to withdraw everything so that you get a clean line, but because it's ethnic, I want it to also have a little bit of my freehand elements in it. I won't redraw, I'd much rather clean it. So there's also something here that perhaps I want to clean. And I'll just be real quick about it. Perhaps I want it that way. Perhaps I don't like this one. And perhaps I want to match it with these others. Yeah, so say That's perhaps something I want to do. Yeah. And then anything else, like I would like this triangle perhaps to be a bit different. I can quickly just, you know, draw a triangle because perhaps I want this to be proper triangle. Like that. Give it a color, different color. And then perhaps delete the one underneath. Right? And so on and so forth. So I think in terms of editing, you can go as intricate as possible, or you can go as basic and just clean out what already exists. So I hope that's clear, right? So once you have your motif, it's ready, we'll assume it's ready. You will then now look for a pattern design that you would like to have. So because I know my spoon is my focus, I'll set it aside and I'll start by working with my droplets, right? So for my droplets, I'd really like them to be small, not too small. So that's what I'll do. I'll just do a basic repeat, and allow me to show you how to do it. So I'll just click Shift, Command, and Alt together to make the first copy. And then what I will do is I will then Command D to create that design consistently across my artboard. It sort of does an exact copy in the exact spacing. And then finally copy the same thing and again doing the same thing. Command, Shift, and Alt key, copying it downwards. Again, Command D so that my pattern is copied across my artboard. Once I've done that, I have a full tiling of my background. Simple, right? So I then select all and make sure I put them centrally. It's always nice to retain your margin. So that's the first part, right? So we've already done a background in a record few minutes. And so what I'll do is, because I want to also now see how this print will look on my pattern, I will perhaps reduce the opacity of this background by say a factor of 10 and leave it there and lock it. So what I've done is I've just created a gentle background so that I can now work on the repeat of my spoon, right? So my spoon is there. I'll command group so that it actually is grouped, and then start looking for ways in which I will do the repeat. So for my repeat, I am looking at perhaps doing a full repeat or a reflection repeat. So let me try a full repeat. So I've copied it and perhaps I want to reflect it, transform, reflect, and that. Quite nice. I like the spoon reflect, perhaps a little bit of space. And because I want to see how it will look from top to bottom, I will again do the same thing. I will copy it and paste it and see how that looks. But I'd like to see it make a diamond shape because I feel like there's something interesting that could happen if I create a diamond shape. So I'll group and simply do that. Right? And then, you know, enlarge it and say perhaps this is a probable repeat. Right? So, and the idea is to just test and see how it will look as a repeat before I put in the color. So essentially, that's perhaps how it will look like, you know, and I quite like it. Let's just leave it at that, right? So because I don't want to go too far before I apply color, right? I'd like to start by applying color. So what I do is I normally, you know, think of what the color palette would be like. For example, it's wood is creams, browns, right? So I can simply just start by adding, you know, color blocks here. I usually do it on the side, and I'll pick 3 colors randomly and and then refine them as I go along. So I might want to work with 3. That's a nice strong color. I like that rich orange, perhaps a light brown, as well as perhaps a darker shade of brown. But I'd like it to be more rich in reds, so perhaps I want to take it somewhere like there, like ochre red, right? Sorry. So we do have our colors, right? So let's assume those are our colors. I haven't quite checked them, but I'll clean. The checking will happen later. Right now, I just want to play around with how my pattern would look like. So what I do is once I've formulated a general motif, I tend to hide and work with only one, because I just want to color one, then I'll copy it over in the exact same places where I had the original artwork happening. So we'll tackle the spoon first because it's our main motif, and because it's our main motif, we'll select okay, so we'll select all the white areas. Let's just presume, and how you do that is you click the white area, go and say select all, select the fill color white, and put the orange, right? However, I don't want the whole thing to be red, orange. So what I do is, so as you can see, I'm trying to hide the white background, the white bits, or even remove it. Actually, that's even better. Let's have a small gap there, right? Let's have that gap there. So assuming I don't want the whole thing to be orange, I want sections of it. So sections of it to be different colors. So what I can do is I can pick the sections I want variation. Sorry. Okay. There, there. I'm skipping one. Okay, that's gonna be an issue, but anyway, let's just do it that way. So we'll change it to perhaps this color, right? And perhaps I want, so I've realized that there's this panel that needs also, but there's also something here that I may want to change. To the orange. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut. So I look for my pathfinder and say split. Let me see if it worked. Yeah, it's worked. So what I'm doing is I'm changing it to the orange because I want an alternating color tone. So what I've done is I've cut it so that it's independent and leave it orange so that I can make this. I hope you've seen what I've done, right? So I've just color corrected, and then also I'd like this part to be orange or ochre, and perhaps these parts too. So let's assume that we have finished the design for the spoon by just adding a little bit here. So let's assume we are happy with those colors. And I'm not too keen on that white gap. Are you seeing that white gap? I'm not too keen on it. So what I'll do is I'll actually just remove this piece. And just remove that piece, right? And have it just as a normal spoon. So now I have finished the spoon. I want to also just work on the background just to see how it would look, right? So for the background, I'd like it to be in a very light peach, perhaps that color. And perhaps even lighter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a transparency, make it perhaps 40%, right? However, I'd like that to be that color, 100%, right? So the idea is the background is a lighter shade of the very same color. And because I'm feeling like it's still too bright, I'll make this 70%. Nope, I still want it lighter, make it 60%. Slightly lighter, make it 5. So I think I like my background, right? So what I'll do is I'll then again lock it, Command 2, and I'll lock that file, and now start working on my motif. Remember the motif we had created? So I had hidden my motif, and so what I do is I now unhide it so that it comes on, right? And what I do is I now exactly copy and mirror what exactly I had done before. So transform, we had reflected it, and setting it exactly where the other one was so that I can remove the black and white one. And then I do the exact same thing here. Transform, reflect. And we reflect it horizontally. So as you can see, it's right behind there. We have our motif, right? And I must say this is too big for me. So what I do is I now make it smaller so that it now becomes a repeat matching the background. Right? So I felt they were too big. So I want to create a motif that is just right. And perhaps putting it right on the edge there. So when I'm happy, I do the very same thing. Voila! There is our motif. So, so far we've come up with a motif, and as you can see, very interesting design. It has this diamond shape with spoon, with a spoon effect, but then it ends up looking like something very interesting. So because we haven't saved this file, I'd like us now to save it before we lose any. So we'll just go to File and we'll save it as, create a little folder and perhaps call the folder ethnic spoon, and then call it the very same thing, ethnic spoon, and then motif, right? And you can even give the file the dimensions there as an AI, right? And say save, Illustrator 2020, save. So we have our motif, right? So the next step is to actually then now, and this I'd like to share with you a tip. So the idea is to now look at your colors and see whether your colors are perfect, right? So because there's a longer process of doing it through Photoshop, what I'll do is I'll share with you how to do this when we're learning how to create a pattern using Photoshop. So for now, let's assume we have the correct colors that we need, which were the 3 colors. The ochre, the orange, the ochre, which is this, the ochre red, the orange yellow, and then the light brown. These are the 3 core colors that we shall be using. And we can officially say it's a 3-color job, right? So, but for now, we'd now like to save and prepare the print for the printer. So how do we do this? We look at our technical specs sheet, and I think we'd called out a specification of 150 by 100 centimeters. So what we do is now we create it into a motif that repeats so that it's able to cover that space. So what we do is we then now create a new file and save it as 150. I'll just use the very same one by 100 and perhaps mention that it's the output file, right? Because this is what we're going to send to our printer, right? So again, in the very same folder, I've created it, and then I'm now going to resize it. So for resizing, this artboard was initially 10 by 10 centimeters, right? So I'll simply go to File, Document Setup, and edit the artboard and change the setting up here to 150 by 100. And as you can see, the artboard is already transforming to that size, right? So we have a whole artboard that has changed from 10 to 150 by 100. And always remember that this way, what starts and leads is the width, and what follows is the height. Normally printers won't mention this. They'll always tell you our file size is 150 by 100. The expectation is that you know the first number is always the width, the second number is the height, right? So never confuse it. Never save your file to be 100, 150 height and then 100 width, because you'd have gotten it wrong, because that's a different dimension from a printer point of view. So always make sure that it's as indicated. Then what we're going to do is we're going to automatically automate this artwork into a pattern. So I'm going to show you the automatic way of doing it. So I'm going to click my image and go to Object and go to Pattern and say Make. Right? And what you'll see is you'll actually see a small pop-up that says the new pattern has been added to the swatch. It goes right here, and any changes made in the pattern editing mode will be applied to the swatch upon exit. So meaning if we even edit anything, it'll just automatically update it. So then you'll say OK, right? And there you go. It makes for you your your pattern. And what you can do is be very careful about this area here. So there's an area here where it says new pattern, save a copy, done, and cancel. You must choose an option before you exit this mode, the pattern make mode. So if you want to make any edits and adjustments, you need to make sure that you do them all before you exit, right? So for example, I'll give you an example of what perhaps I feel that this edge needs to be. Oh yeah, sorry, let me just. So you need to click, you see this pattern option, you need to click this tool here. It's called the pattern tile tool. Once you click it, you're able to edit the edges. So for example, I want to close this gap between here and here so that they're close like what's happening here. You see here it's close, where here it's not close. So what I do is I move it in. That's an error. I'm not sure what's going on. Actually, I think I may have to. So I don't think that change will be affected because I've actually moved from the 10 centimeter artboard to now a new artboard. So essentially, it may not work. I'm just wondering. There's a gap I want to close. Let's see if I can close it. Yeah, so for me to close the gap, I might need to overlap the images. And so that here is where normally you would have to, you see that line, you see that infinitesimal line. It simply means that on my artwork, the artboard of 10 by 10, that edge is, there's still a stroke. So normally what I would do is I would, so this is a trick I do. I click this, the background, because the background is what is messing me up, and cut it because I don't want it. For now, I will use it on the general artboard. Right? So I'll create the background on top of the pattern, right? And then do all my adjustments now in peace, for lack of a better word. So for example, I want it. Is it moving closer? Yeah. So you see now I've cleaned that, it's moved in, right? So now the moving in will move in with all the elements, including the background. So I will, and you see that the problem is now this spacing becomes, this spacing becomes different from this spacing. So perhaps I'll just say I'd rather not spoil my pattern and just leave it that way. But the idea is to appreciate that you've checked the artwork, right? So give an example. Like you can decide to actually make this dance a bit like that and see how it looks. Like that. Assuming. You will see all of them do the same. The little adjustment you do will happen to all of them. Hmm. Very interesting. It's only moving one or two. It should move all of them. Yeah, so it's moving the ones that have been affected. So yeah, so I think because this is a tile of two, I need to move, all the adjustments need to happen on the both sets, right? So if I curve all these, you'll see all of them curving. So what I'll do is I'll just finish the artwork so that we're able to appreciate the artwork in the artboard that we've been given. So I will then now go and say done. I'm done with my changes. So I'll click done. And what will happen is it'll receive the message that I'm done making any edits to my pattern, right? So if you realize my pattern hasn't been created, all I was doing is I was looking at it on a preview mode. So this pattern right here is what you see exactly here on your swatch tool, right? Now, to tile it across that artboard, I will simply create a box of 150 by 100, right? And making sure it's on the edge of the artboard by snapping to the edge of the artboard. I will then make it blank, right? So I have an existing box, and I could even decide to clear off my artwork and just have it plain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click that swatch. First click the box and click the swatch and it'll apply. So my artwork has been applied automatically. And there is my pattern. But you remember we had a color in the background, right? So I will open now my motif, and that's why it's always nice to have a motif. Pick the color of that motif, which was that color, and go back to my output file and put it there, and then simply create another box and pick that color, which was a transparency, and again send it to back, and there we have our design as it was before. So we can either have it in white or we can have it with the background color. And then hit Command S, which is save. And voila, that's the end. Finished my design. Yeah, thank you.